I'm on a busy street in Essex and I'm about to go in a pub that's not a pub anymore. It's now home to a well-known purveyor of Porsche and Porsche bits. And the reason why I've come here is to meet the guy, Richard King, who was a massive inspiration to me back in the late 80s, 90s in modified Beetles and air-cooled VWs, but also because he's built the lightest Porsche 911 ever. Oh, welcome to the Late Break Show. This is Richard King, and this is a bit weird for me, Richard, because I grew up and I kind of got into cars by reading Volksworld in the late 80s, early 90s, and I remember for years your cars were on the cover, always featured Carmen Gears, Tiger Top Beetles. That was a wild era for custom stuff. Yeah. And yet I've never met you and I've never been to Carmen Connection. I don't know why, but it's great to finally see you, because I know you migrated from sort of air-cooled VWs into Porsches early on. Yeah, I remember that. I remember 356s and thinking, oh, that's a dream car for me. It still is, actually. Yeah. So where did it all start?
Well, with the Volkswagens, I was primarily into custom cars, believe it or not, sort of American, but then in smaller English versions of them. And then I was out in France, funny enough, chopping a Mercury, and there were some American VW Trends magazines in the workshop. Okay. And we started, I was with a friend of mine, Rick, and we started looking at them thinking, that'd be nice to do a little VW. So we went back and we both bought VWs. He bought a Bug, I bought a Gear to get the motor out, and then I thought, oh, do you know what, I can't throw this Gear away, even though it's rusty. So that was my first Volkswagen, and I kept it, and it became the yellow car.
That's became that? Yeah. Wow, okay. And this was in the 80s?
Yes. Oh, yeah, really? Like early 80s, like probably 81 or 2.
And then so through the 80s, the whole like fluorescent paint, wild custom thing, and then into the more traditional kind of Cal look. Yeah. Scene as we know it now.
Yeah, so the sort of the Cal look first, and then it was the Resto Cal when people realised that if you do too much to them, you devalue them quite a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, and we kept doing that, and then eventually, sort of, I ran out of steam with it personally. The scene changed. You know, you get older and you get a bit bored, to be honest. But yeah, basically anything from 1950 up to really probably 1980. You know, we short wheelbase 911s, long wheelbase 911s, big on. But then the 70s cars, later 70s, we're getting into big time now, and we'll probably do a project soon. Okay.
Show me the rest of the work, because I know you've got complete cars elsewhere. You've got bits here, real full cars over there somewhere.
Come through.
And this is a pub, remember, or was a pub.
Yeah. Bit thirsty now.
It's a great building.
That's my workshop there. That's the 65 911. Been waiting 32 years to finish that one.
Seriously? A 65 911 that you've been working on for many decades?
But it's all done by done by the paint job and assembly, and just waiting. But I keep getting other projects get in the way.
Before we talk about this car in detail, because this is the main reason we came here today, because it's just such a bonkers, eccentric project. Let's have a look in this shed here, because you've got some of your other Porsches. Bloody hell, look at this.
The Carrera, yeah. Every home should have one. It's the car that made Porsche famous, really. It was certainly the engine that did. Yeah. At Le Mans and many races afterwards. And continued into the 904.
Is this yours?
Yes. Yeah, had that quite a long time. Didn't restore it for a long time, but we restored it about 4 years ago. It's going to the Volkswagen show, funnily enough, to go back to my roots.
Is it you going to the Volkswagen show?
Yeah, with that and with the lightweight. Yeah.
Brilliant. I've got to say that still to this day, I think this is probably the best shaped car. Good.
This is 58. That's a 58. Quite an interesting car. Right-hand drive, supplied by AFN. supplied by Porsche to AFN, but went to Nigeria. It was meant to be owned by Kwame Nkrumah, the dictator, but I can't corroborate that. But that was the story I heard from the man who imported it.
The coolest coloured.
Yeah, Delphi green, a lovely metallic option colour, obviously. It's an American spec, so it's got the markers on the front.
Yeah.
And, but it's only done 18,000 miles, which is why we've got it.
18.
And it hasn't done any more lately either.
Sticking with Porsches.
Only Porsche.
Yeah.
Just it's in my blood. And when I was a kid, when I was 3, my dad bought his first Porsche. So in 1960, I was 4. A 356 Super 90 Coupe.
Oh.
And then he bought an SC Coupe in 63. So
I didn't know that you'd grown up around them. So
then he had a 911 order to 65, but didn't get it. So I've got one now to make up for it. But yes, and then he dropped out of cars completely, and then he got into other stuff and retired, and the rest isn't history because he never. I used to take him out sometimes. He's not with us now, but I used to take him out in the twin turbo and a Carrera 2S we had for a while.
Show me round this incredible orange holy thing. It's
the holy thing.
You might not see it at first because from a distance it just looks like, I guess, a racy inspired 911, but there's so much more to it than that. How did this bloody thing start?
The project started with an idea to build a 911R replica.
Okay.
So I was inspired by 911R because they made so few, they made for a specific purpose, and they were fairly light. Although nowadays I think of them as fairly heavy.
How heavy were they? I can't remember.
They were 8-10 kilos, I believe. And then Larousse's one, he apparently bribed the mechanics at Porsche to get a kilo off and gave them a case of champagne for every kilo.
Wow.
At the end of the day, they're a bit boring. They were built to do a job.
Yes.
And then I thought, if I build that, I'm going to sort of look at it and think, I've just copied what Porsche did like 50 years ago. Why would I do that?
Yeah.
So I think I'll copy what Richie wants to do today.
Yeah.
And the project commenced.
I read that you'd basically bought quite a bad car to start with. A rolling shell, no engine, no gearbox.
Exactly, a blank sheet really.
Yeah.
You know, no fenders, no front. Oh, it did have front hood and fenders, but they were all late model, so nothing relevant to a short wheelbase, basically.
Yes, yeah.
Very little left that was short wheelbase.
And then, so you thought an R is okay, but it's a bit formulaic.
When the project was started, the R was still on my mind, so I did get, you know, the basic influence from the body shape and panels from the R, but then I didn't want to like get the exact R fenders. I could have, a friend of mine makes them in steel out in the States, and I didn't want to get the exact R this and that, and just end up with a replica.
Yeah.
So it transformed into a one-off, and then I've talked to a few people, and one of them made a comment about, oh, you know, how light could you build the car? And I said, well, maybe 720 kilos, and I was 810, saved 90 kilos. And someone made a bet with me that, you know, anything under 700 and they sort of pay some champagne bottles. I'm still waiting for that, but he can hear this. And so.
And is it? What is it?
Well, it's about 627 at the moment.
Oh my gosh.
So it's light, but it's going on a diet.
Basically, it's going on another diet?
Another diet. It's going on its first diet. So the first one was its incarnation. Now it goes on a proper diet. For 2 reasons. One is to get it to, ideally, to 599 kilos. And 2 is to make the weight distribution better. So of that 30 kilo saving, 90% will be at the back of the car.
Okay.
So we have got some of the components, and the whole plan is in place to do it.
I looked up before we started the shoot. What's the lightest production Porsche that's new today? And it's a base model Boxster, which I think is 1,380 kilos.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how did you do it then? I mean, the whole thing is brilliant.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the front end first.
I was inspired by Lotus. When the new guy came in, he wanted to build the Lotus lighter, more efficient, a bit faster. They had 3 warehouses and they took the cars to pieces, but there were the three premises is, do you need the component? Or, so you get rid of it. Or, can you replace it with a lighter one? You replace it. Or, can you lighten the existing one? They're the three premises. And I've approached every single part of this car with that basic outlook.
And this is you working out of hours. This is your hobby car, not your business.
All my hobby,
thing.
not the business. I've got two great mechanics here. I had a great metalworker, Lionel at Lionel's Body Shop, helped me on all the fundamentals. Jeff Barry helped fitting all the fiberglass. Really good guys helping on this project. You know, it's not a one-man project. Andy and John, the mechanics, you know, couldn't do it without them. But we works as a team.
Yeah. I don't care what people say. There's such a similarity between a Beetle and an old 911.
Yeah.
And people who deny that, I reckon, have never driven a Beetle. Yeah.
Sounds nice.
It's really good. Feels really good fun. I'm just staring at holes everywhere.
I know.
Usually holes in an old car mean rust. This is the opposite.
I thought you meant holes in the road. It's bloody more on them, like that. But we're loping along at 50 and it's doing 2,500.
I know.
We're only in... Oh, we're in fifth now, yeah. Yeah, we are in fifth. But it's dodgy.
Do you know what? I was worried I wouldn't be able to fit in it, but actually,
Yeah.
it's actually really nice. Sit really low. You can see all the way through into the fuel tank. It's a bit disconcerting. It's bizarre, isn't it? How suddenly 180 horsepower is so responsive.
Yeah.
Because there's just no weight going on.
It's so talky, you know.
So no soundproofing.
Sorry?
No soundproofing.
No.
No grab handle.
No.
No seat belts.
No. Check.
Yeah. It's like the ultimate delete option. Porsche.
No comfort.
So front end.
Front end. All fiberglass.
All fiberglass. Okay, so wings,
Yep.
bonnet.
Yep.
Is it glass screen?
It's actually a Lexan race screen
Nice.
with a hard point outer and a double anti-fog inner.
Nice.
A lot more expensive than the glass screen.
I bet it is.
So
Did
drilled
you
out.
drill all this
I mean,
stuff?
just you can't. You know, there's a lot of complicated little things. So that base isn't off that wiper arm because there's a 924 rear hatch wiper motor there,
Okay.
and that spline doesn't fit a 911 one. So that is joined there.
And is it a hatch motor because you just wanted one wiper and you wanted...
One mitre, it self-cancels and it's light as a feather.
Okay.
But I did drill it a bit.
Did you?
Yeah. And ground it.
Okay. Front, now obviously glass fibre kind of...
Yeah. Standard spec bumper.
Yeah. There's no indicators, obviously.
No indicators. One tiny little horn off a moped.
Is it on your side?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's just your side.
Oh yeah,
It's your side.
It's about the size of a 50p piece. And then the bumper irons you've made what looks like aluminium.
Aluminium, drilled and anodised.
Wow. Got to have a look under here.
Well,
I've only had a quick look in.
Look under. Quite rare. The old not black.
Yes.
I found them at Mannheim Swap Meet in Germany.
And obviously drilled out the brackets.
Drilled the brackets.
When you were, by the way, Richie, when you were drilling stuff out, were you having to kind of look at structural rigidity?
Yes, a lot.
Because you didn't want the car to sort of start
A
folding
lot.
around.
No, I really thought about every single aspect of it and really did concentrate on what I wanted the car to do, what the functions of each component were and how strong it had to be, bearing in mind the amount of weight we'd lost.
Yeah.
So you've got to factor in, if you're like 5/8 of the weight and you've only designed it for 2 people and no luggage, you actually don't need half so much vent. You need about a quarter or third of the strength of an original component, which of course are vastly over-engineered. Otherwise they'd be, you know, prosecuted all the time or, you know, sued. So but so fiberglass bonnet.
Bloody
it was
hell.
so floppy we had to put some balsa
some braces in.
braces, which worked pretty well. Standard hinges,
But still drilled it.
still drilled. More for aesthetics. Obviously, people say, "Oh, you see, people get the wrong end of the stick in life with a project like this. They say, oh, you know, well, that was hardly worth doing because that's only like, you know, 4 ounces or 100 grams or whatever." And I say, no, to do this project, if you're aiming for 595 kilos eventually, or 627 now, you have to have no compromise.
You count the grams.
You compromise on the don't compromise on the integrity, but you do have to really be resolute about lightening everything and not thinking that bit doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't reach that weight.
So you did pretty much unbolt a bracket, weigh it, and then drill and then weigh it.
We did a lot of comparison weights.
Did you?
Yes, it's quite exciting doing that. It sort of eggs you on.
Yeah.
Because you think, yeah, well, I've lost 4 kilos on that, but I could have lost 5. Right, take it back again, out in the workshop, and just see what we can do.
This is the oldest form of sort of car lightning, though, isn't it?
Yes.
Back in the 20s, you'd see chassis with extra holes.
Yeah, definitely.
So did you use, was it just hole saws or was it stamping?
No stamping, but a lot of hole saws, die grinders, drills, and people say, oh, you must have used like 500 drill bits. No, I actually broke about 4.
Really?
And they're all small ones.
Yeah.
But I sharpened probably 150 times or 200 times. Plastic, race style, factory style tank. So you could have had that in a 911R or an ST, which was the successor to the 911R.
Yeah. Significantly lighter than a metal
Significantly
tank.
lighter, little aluminium. We had to hand form that because I couldn't buy any tubing, aluminium tubing that diameter, so a friend of mine rolled it up.
Wow. Thinking about all the cars you've built over the years, in the custom VWs and the sort of outlaw style Porsches and things, I suppose aesthetics is a big deal for you. You like your architecture, you like antiques.
Yes.
It has to kind of look right.
Definitely, and you know, I didn't change many things on this. I like to think I got 97% of it right. I changed the wheels for 2 reasons. One, the originals were too heavy and they were a bit boring, set of folks, even though I'd like them, a bit boring. The interior mirror, I had a 68 911 one in there. I drilled it, I ground it, I made it a bit lighter. It looked quite nice.
Yeah.
And then I found that little Gogomobile one I had on the shelf in the shop and thought, well, it looks like a Porsche one, but it doesn't fit a Porsche, so I'll modify it.
And it's smaller.
That was one of the hardest things to drill.
I bet it was.
That's quite hard to drill.
Imagine this with double the power, Rich. Bloody hell. You know what we were saying before about, like, the ultimate, like, classic car is a car which feels like it's going quick when it isn't necessarily going quick.
Yeah.
That's this.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun at 60 miles an hour.
Yeah, that is true, though.
Yeah. How many hours have you spent on this car?
Probably about 2,000 hours.
Really?
Like a whole year full time.
Wow.
Plus building the engine, the gearbox, the upholstery, all the other people that did work. We kept assembling it.
I love the steering wheel. It feels really good. You're right down in it. So this is only the 3rd time you've been out in it?
Yeah.
Wow. I feel very privileged now, even more than before. I've just opened the door and it feels like a crisp packet in the wind. It's so light.
It does feel light.
You can feel how flimsy and this, just a piece of strap, simple canvas.
Lighter than leather,
Absolutely.
which most people use.
Yeah.
Aluminium door hinges, and then they went on a drilling diet.
Oh my gosh, they did.
And then we did quite a lot of work here on the door top. So this goes all the way around.
Bloody hell, Richard.
Oh, one screw's come loose there. Oh, better tighten that up before the rotor.
This is what gives it away almost at the flash of an eye, is the skeletal dashboard.
Yeah.
The naked trans tunnel. I mean, the tunnel is so skeletal.
There's a lot of work, and people don't realise as well. In a 356, the trans tunnel is flat like this and doesn't really give the car much strength. It just kind of stops like this. It stops the floor pans boinging around.
Yes.
And it is a place for all the controls to go.
Yep.
The strength of these cars and the 356 is in the sills. So it's in the rocker. So basically you've got to have a nice strong dashboard. This may not look strong, but we have strengthened it in fundamental places.
Okay.
And we've de-seamed it. So then you go down into the A pillar, into the sill, up the B pillar, and the roof and the rear suspension points and the front suspension points. They've all got to be tied together safely.
Yeah.
In this car they are.
I love the seats. Nice bit of corduroy.
Seats, yeah, handmade by, the fiberglass was made by Barry Martin. I made the seat frames.
Gosh.
Neil Tabman upholstered them
They
beautifully.
look good. Good combination of orange and blue. Green even.
The green, yeah.
I'm colourblind, but I'm not that bad.
So the outside colour's Continental orange, Porsche colour.
Yeah.
75, I think.
Yeah.
And the inside and underneath is Volkswagen beige grey. I had to get a bit of Volkswagen in. Didn't actually want a component, so I used a colour.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Just noticed all the drilling around
A lot of
the roof.
drilling in the roof, and the whole, ethos was just to, as well as making it light, to make it look quite pretty.
Yeah.
And follow through with the, all the holes.
Pedal box is amazing.
Pedal box, yeah, did at home, a lot of work. The throttle pedal I made, so that's just a little bit of alley box section with a proprietary alley door hinge on the floor. And a little nylon bush, our engineer Colin, who helped a lot on this project, he turned up. So, simple.
Yeah, and of course the
917 style
917.
gear knob. I mean, just looking at that gear lever though, so the lever just looks like the standard gear lever with a few holes in. It's actually shortened by about 40 mil. It's ground down to make it thinner, and then it's drilled, and then it's zinc plated.
Bloody hell. You're in so deep with this.
It's.
Did you ever get to a point where you think, I think this is madness, I'm not sure I should carry on?
I actually got more inspired as I went along and started getting edgier, so I did the opposite.
I think I realised the lack of soundproofing when you could hear how loud the starter motor was,
Yeah.
let alone the exhaust.
Yeah, that kind of, it's one of those aftermarket high gear ones, and it doesn't struggle, but it doesn't sound happy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Also, it's easy to get this dog leg and not work out which gear you're in anyway sometimes.
Yeah, because
there's not many cars on dog leg.
No. And if you do get it wrong, like me,
It
doesn't bolt down.
I can remember driving at 912s and 911s, they made 4-speed and 5-speed. I remember getting a 912 home from the States. I drove it for about an hour before I realised it was a 5-speed.
Really? An
Got
hour?
the way fine in second. I'll get this dialed in a bit more and get it on its diet, and
Take it on a track day.
definitely want to do Carrera if I can.
I love it. I mean, it's bonkers, but it kind of works.
Yeah.
I mean, it shouldn't really, but I love it.
I mean, I never knew what it was going to drive like. I've had the 68 911, and it drove great. But this drives like totally different, but similar.
Yeah.
Totally different because of the extremes, but similar because it's still got the 911 suspension and gearbox, and the engine's totally different, and the
Still got the DNA. Actually, let's talk about the wheels, because I noticed them earlier on.
Wheels, yes. Steel alloys, that's kind of my trademark. I've made about probably 25 sets up over the years for both wide 5 and disc brake fittings.
Okay.
I got factory centres, steel, and aftermarket rims that I normally use.
They look great.
We turned down the rims on a lathe, and then the centres, we turned the centre out, milled the back, made the holes twice as big, and I ground and ground and ground.
Twice as big.
Twice as big. So basically they were weighing in about 4.9 kilos, and someone on Instagram said, oh, but they'll never be as light as a gas burner, which is 4.5 kilos, I think. So I kept working on them, they weigh in at 4.3.
Okay.
Then we, of course, run them tubeless, and we put those Dunlop race tyres on, and we save 20 kilos.
Brilliant.
Brand new old stock, proper 911R lights.
Are they really?
Yeah.
New old stock?
Found in Germany, yeah.
Bloody hell.
The rear bumper is actually second hand because I couldn't get one to fit, and this was off Mark Sumpter's 2-litre race car, but they have to run steel, so he changed it all to steel panels. We've got the lovely deck lid. It was really nice straight deck lid made by TRE in the States.
No extra trim
no
on there.
extra trim there. Little 911R style, then drilled a little bit for the hinges. It's a great design, this. I mean, you lift it up, and this is how the factory designed it. That just leans on the back window. And
No stay, brilliant, no rods, that's nice. What is this engine and transmission? Because it obviously didn't have one when you bought the car.
No, so basically I needed an engine, and I already had one without realising. We had a 914.6 that had a 67S motor. So that has a aluminium case and a counterweighted crank, 2-litre. The problem, I sent it off to my engine builder, Jez at GCS Engineering, and he said, oh, I've got a customer who needs an aluminium case for a race engine. So we did a trade with some money. I ended up with a magnesium case.
Oh.
So that was lighter. So basically it's a 1970 magnesium case. It's got the counterweighted crank, probably a bit heavy with hindsight, but had a bit of work done on there. New 2.2 miler barrels, rebuilt 40 Webers.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good. Pair of S camshafts. So big valve heads later.
Yeah.
So it's not a mega powerful engine. It's about 180 horsepower.
But if it's 180 horsepower with 627 kilos,
It works good.
that's
Later on, after the diet, the next move is probably a more powerful engine. Not ridiculously powerful, but possibly 250.
Got to say the carb linkage is it's something from a Swiss watch.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Things like, we didn't use rubber, we used the foam. That's out of a Type 4 Volkswagen. Oh,
Yeah.
that's the only second Volkswagen part on it.
Yeah. I used to have a 412.
Okay, so that's aftermarket foam. That's
Yes.
the one that sometimes catch fire when it gets a bit of petrol on it. And
I know. Yeah. How we joke.
there's no componentry here, which on most 911s and most of the 911 race cars, it's all there. I put it in the centre, and I think that looks aesthetically a bit better. And obviously, weight distribution, it's towards the right, drives on the left.
Yeah,
So a little bit of help maybe. But I think one of my favourite things in here, just little details like the plastic carb tops, you know.
Ah, because they're lighter.
And then, obviously, we've modified the crossbar mount, but the actual engine mount that bolts on, that's not the factory steel one here. That is aluminium handmade.
Right.
So basically, this car was an SC replica with big arches, and when we took them off, you had a big hole. So I had to buy two 6973 rear wings, second-hand ones, but rust-free, and then cut that arch off because I wanted that 6973 rear arch. Metal finished the whole car. There's not any filler in it.
And you painted this car?
Painted it myself. I couldn't trust anyone else to do it how I wanted. It's 3 coats of primer, blocked to within an inch of its life, and then 3 coats of orange.
It's like 300 millilitres of orange, just quickly.
There's not a lot of paint on it.
Just dusted on.
Not a lot of paint.
But it's just enough. It's just enough, isn't it, for it to not show through?
Yeah.
I feel like it's sort of been therapeutic, this whole project. What interests me about cars like this is that the creator, Richie King, he's had dozens and dozens of cars, and he kind of treats them as pieces of art. It's a silly idea, and it's become a bit of an obsession, but nevertheless, actually, a really, really interesting car. And just when you think you've seen every iteration of Porsche 911 going, someone brings out something a little bit more quirky, and that I'm all for. I hope you've really enjoyed this episode of The Late Break Show. If you haven't already subscribed, why not subscribe? If you support this channel through Patreon, thank you very much. And if you want to know more about that, you can get early access to videos and extra info, behind the scenes stuff. I will put a link in the description below. Cheers.